registering as a seller, I'm going to cover the different options, but as well as that, I want to talk about some of the things you need to know before you start selling on Amazon. So the first thing is deciding whether or not you are going to sell just as an individual or whether you are going to register a business entity. Now this could be simply a sole trader, sole proprietor. It's the same thing, just different terminology. Or you may decide to form a company. Now, some wholesale suppliers will only want to deal with you if you have a registered business. Now, in my other Amazon course, which teaches private labeling, we don't talk too much about this, and the reason for that is because we are sourcing from overseas, from China mostly. Whereas with this kind of selling, you're going to be sourcing domestically or mainly sourcing domestically. So it's going to benefit you a lot if you do have a registered business. But as I say, that could just be something like a sole trader, which is very quick and easy to do. And in some countries, it doesn't cost anything to set up that kind of business. A company, there's more red tape involved. There's always a cost involved, but it can have tax advantages. Now, it is going to be up to you to do your research here. I can only give general advice as per this disclaimer here, because situations are different depending on your own circumstances and where you live, and laws vary from country to country as well. Now, I will say that if you decide not to have any kind of registered business, then you are going to be limited to your choice of wholesale suppliers. The next thing I want to touch on is VAT. For those of you who are living in Europe and going to be selling in Europe, if you want to sell in an EU country that you don't reside in, then you do need to be VAT registered in that country or have a company in that country. So this would be the UK, so amazon.co.uk, France, amazon.fr, Italy, amazon.it, Germany, amazon.de, and Spain, amazon.es. So right now, those are the marketplaces. So if you wanted to sell on one of those marketplaces, but you don't live in that country, you do need to be VAT registered, or you need to have a company in that country. Now, if you do reside in the country that you are going to be selling in, you do not need to be VAT registered, not until you reach the VAT threshold for that country. Now that varies from country to country. In the UK it's about £80,000, but it does vary. So once you reach that threshold in sales, annual sales threshold, you do need to be VAT registered anyway, but you would need to be VAT registered right from the outset if you do not live in the country that you are going to be selling in. And just to clarify, this is for Europe because VAT is a European thing. Now for the US, you have sales tax. Now if you're going to be selling in the US, you should really register for sales tax in the state where you have a presence. Now that means you have a physical location where you work from. That would probably be your house, or you have a warehouse, or you have a shared warehouse, so you have space in a warehouse that you pay for where you keep goods. Now that would also be considered a presence in a state. So you need to look at this for yourself. Again, you need to do your own research on this. Now for everywhere else, so for example Australia, Canada, India, you do have your own taxes there. So Australia has the GST, Australian Goods and Services Tax. Canada has retail sales tax. India has retail sales tax. Now do your own research, but also inside Amazon. So once you've signed up for an Amazon account and you can log in there, in the help files, you will find more information about these sales taxes, about retail taxes. You're going to find help files inside Amazon, and that's going to help you as well. Now one more thing to touch on here, and this is about what's called a reseller permit. Many US wholesalers will ask for this, not all of them, but some of them do. And this is a US thing, so when you're purchasing from US wholesalers, now you do not need a reseller's license or a reseller permit if you do not have a presence in the US or you don't have a US company. So if you are going to buy from a US wholesaler but you don't have a presence in the US, you might need to explain to them that you don't need a reseller permit. And in fact, you can't get a reseller permit if you don't have a presence in the US. But a lot of US wholesalers, because they are only accustomed to dealing with US entities or people who reside in the US, sometimes they don't know this. Now, there's probably not many reasons why you'll be buying from a US wholesaler if you are not in the US or you don't have a presence in the US, but I wanted to mention that anyway. Now, for those of you that are in the US and you are going to be buying from US wholesalers, you should get a reseller permit. It's a good idea, and the reason for that is because if you don't, it's going to limit your choice of wholesalers. Okay, now a reseller permit is like your sales tax ID, so they go hand in hand. Okay, now once again, you need to go and do your own research on this. Things vary from state to state in the US, and I am not an expert nor qualified to really give you this kind of advice. I'm just trying to touch on it so that you know where to go from this point. Alright, now before we move on, I just want to say, don't let any of this stuff hold you up from getting started. You should take the path of least resistance just to get started. That's what I advise, even if that means retail arbitrage, where to begin with you're not going to need to worry too much about sales tax, IDs, reseller permits or anything like that. If you're going to do some retail arbitrage just to get started and get off the ground and get some experience. So that would be the path of least resistance for many of you. I know it wouldn't be possible for all of you to do that, but for many of you, that would be the easiest way to get started, and you can then move from there. I am a great believer in doing something, in actually getting started, because once you have got started, you've started to do something. You have your first product for sale on Amazon. You've made your first sale. Things become a lot easier. So it's easier to work from there than it is sometimes to try and do everything before you even start. That can actually be very demotivating, and it's one of the reasons I think many people just don't get off the ground in the first place. So that's my advice. Take the path of least resistance to begin with. Alright, I'll see you in a minute.